Welcome everyone to the 7th conference of Phase B of this self-knowledge course. This is a very important conference, in which we will talk in detail about what initiation is, and about the trials that the path of initiation entails. Let's then begin this topic by explaining what initiation is. Once we receive this knowledge, we begin to understand that our life has a much higher purpose than what we understood until now. The life of the vast majority of humanity consists only of being born, growing, developing their years of existence trying to achieve some personal or material development, and dying, perhaps harboring the belief that in the afterlife they will be favored by the beliefs that has sustained during that existence. However, when we begin to understand that each existence we live as humans is an opportunity to achieve the purpose for which we exist, which is to achieve the intimate self-realization of our being, or the awakening of 100% of our consciousness, then a path full of mysteries begins to become visible to us, and this is the initiatory path, which we must enter, and which we must walk, to fully develop our spiritual part. But we must understand that initiation is not something that we are going to receive somewhere in this physical world, nor is it related to some academic, social, or religious level that we achieve in the physical world. True initiation is an internal process. It is something very intimate of the soul. Initiation is our own life intensely lived with righteousness, wisdom and love. The self does not receive initiations or degrees. The intimate, our inner being, is the one who receives the initiations. We will verify progress on the initiatory path in the internal worlds, through conscious astral experiences. And everything related to these initiations and the different initiatory processes that we experience is something very intimate between us and our being, therefore, it should not be told to anyone in the physical world. We enter the initiatory path when we manage to ignite the sacred fire of Kundalini within us, and we advance in the different initiations as we create our solar bodies. There are 5 important initiations of major mysteries. These initiations cannot be achieved without sexual magic and Kundalini. So we must be clear that to receive these initiations we must be working with the sacred fire of the Kundalini in the practice of supersex with a stable partner of the opposite sex, infidelity, chastity and love. Another important thing to know is that all the initiations and degrees conferred by many schools of the physical world really have no value in the superior worlds. The masters of the White Lodge only recognize, as true and legitimate initiations, those of the soul. They are totally internal, and are related to the creation of each of the solar bodies on the first mountain. Once the sacred fire of Kundalini lights up in our spine, in the astral world we receive a sword with a tiny blade, that grows with each initiation. So when we manage to condense the sexual energy in the 33 vertebrae of a body, we receive an initiation. The creation of a body can last approximately 2.5 years, with a continuous level of work. The masters of the White Lodge are not interested in the degrees and hierarchies of the physical world. They are only interested in the Kundalini. They examine and measure the spinal cord. If the candidate has not raised the serpent, for them, he is a simple profane like any other, even though he occupies some high position in the physical world. So we must bear in mind that the first step to enter the initiatory path is to light the sacred fire of Kundalini in our spine, to receive the silver sword in the astral world. In Lecture 5 of Phase B, we saw the process of balancing the centers and fabrication of the mercuries, that is fundamental so that we reach the optimal level of energy purification to reach this point. For this, we need to be focused on practicing self-observation from moment to moment, to discover the small details of the ego that are manifested in us, and not allow the waste of our energy. Also, we must be working in meditation all those details of lust, that don't allow us to stop expelling our sexual energy. This, in order to gain an important level of chastity. And when we are in this process, when our mercury is already yellow, they are going to throw us a trial of fire, in which it will be measured if we already have the level of control over our inner fire. That is, over our passions. It is commonly a test of anger, in which that day there is a friction with the partner. And if we refuse to fight and argue, and instead we practice psychological death, eliminating everything that arises within us, and that night we practice supersex with our partner, then the sacred fire will be lit in us. That night, when we transmute the sexual energy, our mercury will turn red. And if we project ourselves consciously to the astral from then on, we will be able to see that we have a small silver sword on the right side of the belt. Thus, we enter the initiatory path, beginning with the regeneration of the physical body, corresponding to the first initiation of major mysteries. Let's study what the 5 initiations of the first mountain are. The first initiation is related to the ascent of the first serpent, which corresponds to the solar physical body. When we manage to condense the sexual energy in the 33 vertebrae of the physical body, and the fire reaches the magnetic field of the root of the nose, this initiation is finished. This initiation confers us power over the elementals of the earth, the gnomes and pygmies. To complete this initiation, we will need to pass certain trials related to tribulation and poverty. Also, constant trials in which our patience and chastity will be tested. The second initiation is related to the second serpent, or second ascent of the Kundalini, which corresponds to the solar vital body. When the fire reaches the magnetic field of the root of the nose, this initiation is finished. It confers power over the elementals of water, the undines and nereids of water. To complete this initiation, we will need to pass certain trials related to tribulation and poverty. Also, we will need to pass constant trials in which our patience and chastity will be tested. For men, the second initiation of major mysteries brings jail, accusing them of a crime they have not committed, and must pass this test without despair or falling into arrogance. The third initiation is related to the creation of the solar astral body. When the fire reaches the magnetic field of the root of the nose, it must descend to the heart by a secret path. When that initiation is finished, the astral fire is born. The neophyte must go, in the astral body, through the entire drama of Christ's passion. He must be crucified, dead and buried, he must be resurrected, and he must also descend into the abyss, and remain there for 40 days before ascension. This is an internal process that is lived in the astral plane. It is necessary to know how to love the couple to achieve this initiation. The sexual union must be filled with immense love. Every kiss, every word, every caress, must be totally free of desire. To complete this initiation, we will need to pass constant trials in which our obedience to the Father, and our loyalty to our energy and to our couple, will be tested. At the end of this initiation, the initiate receives power over the fire salamanders. The fourth initiation of major mysteries is related to the creation of the solar mental body. The sacred fire ascends to the point between the eyebrows and descends to the heart. The mind must be crucified and stigmatized in this initiation. In the world of the mind, the universal fire sparkles. Each one of the 33 chambers that are open in this initiation teaches terrible truths. In this initiation, we will need to face several tests in which our capacity to detach ourselves from everything will be measured. Furthermore, here a lot of work of sacrifice for humanity and learning not to criticize will be required. At the end of this initiation, power is received over the elementals of the air, the sylphs and sylphids of the air, as well as the voluntary management of the solar astral and mental bodies. The fifth initiation of major mysteries is related to the creation of the body of the solar will. There, the sacred fire should rise to the point between the eyebrows and descend to the heart. Everyone who finishes this initiation becomes a true man with a real human soul. In this initiation we learn to do the will of the Father. Is in the fifth initiation where we must decide for either of the two paths, the path of nirvana and the direct path. In the fifth initiation, the body of the conscious will is born. To complete this initiation, we will need to pass certain trials in which will be measured our will to renounce the world, and our will to obey the inner Father. Let's now talk in detail about the trials of initiation. When one enters the path of initiation, when one begins to work, a series of terrible trials come before us. Because the initiate must be tested in every way, to see if he deserves to continue climbing or not. They are months and even years that he is tested daily, to see if he can enter the path, and fulfill each initiation. The first types of trials that we will talk about today are the trials of details. These are small tests that they put on us daily and from moment to moment. It is a rigorous discipline. To do well in these trials, the psychological work of psychological death from moment to moment is essential. Because anyone could pass the big trials but know the tiny little tests. And that's where most initiates get stuck, because they don't think that's a test. These small tests are presented to us in everyday situations, like picking up a coin off the ground. And you might think, that coin worth nothing. But with that action you are losing a test of details, because you are taking for yourself something that doesn't belong to you. They test you in every way, financially, with family, honesty, ambition, pride, lust, anger, jealousy, tyranny, laziness, etc. And it is the constant practice of self-observation and psychological death that will allow us to pass these tests. What each one earns by passing these tests is paid in degrees or initiations. It's hard work, nobody is given anything for free, everything has to be earned. And these trials are thrown both physically and internally. This means that we will be tested both in how we act on the physical plane in a given situation, as well as in how we act in those situations in the astral world. And we must pass the tests on both levels. If we don't pass them, we must begin to meditate on that situation to observe, understand and eliminate the defects that led us to act incorrectly. That way, the next time they give us that test, we will already have an understanding about it, which will allow us to pass it and move forward. There are also the trials of the guardians. We will face the first of these tests during the creation of the solar astral body. This will be in front of the guardian of the astral world. We will see ourselves in the astral world in front of a horrible monster, and we will need to confront him by throwing ourselves at him, to defeat him with our sword. The one who flees is not good as an initiate, because he remains a slave to the ego. This monster personifies our ego, and if at that moment we feel fear and run away, we show that we are not willing to eliminate our ego. This trial is thrown once, and if one fails, it is thrown up to 2 more times. If we fail the test 3 times, we will lose the force and we will leave the knowledge. The second of these tests will be in front of the guardian of the mental world. We are going to face this for the creation of the mental body. We must know that the mind of man is not human, it is in the animal stage. Each one has on the mental plane, the physiognomy that corresponds to him, according to his character. The cunning is there a real fox, the passionate looks like a dog or a he-goat. The encounter with the guardian of the threshold of the plane of the mind is more frightening. This is the great threshold guardian of the world. In this larva, our mental crimes are personified. Those who fail this trial are enslaved by the horrible monster. We will pass it by confronting him, by throwing ourselves at him, to defeat him with our sword. The third and last of these trials will be in front of the guardian of the world of will, or guardian of the paths. This will be during the creation of the solar causal body. In the encounter with this guardian, we must decide if we choose on the direct, narrow, and difficult path, or on the broad and easy path of nirvana. The guardian tells the initiate, you have done a good job so far, but now you must choose one of these 2 paths, that narrow and difficult road that leads to the absolute, or this wide and paved road that leads to nirvana. He who is not willing to do the will of the Father chooses the path of nirvana, the easy path. 999, out of every 1,000 initiates, choose this path. Everyone who is willing to do the will of the Father puts him to choose the path. Only 1 out of every 1,000 initiates choose this path. The path of nirvana can lead us to be part of nirvana's societies that live in peace and harmony on different planets in the universe. But by choosing this path, we will remain stuck at the level of men, having managed to awaken around 70% of our consciousness. Only those who risk taking the direct path that leads to the ascent of the second mountain of initiation manage to unite with their divine soul and achieve the birth of the intimate Christ within them. And therefore, they are the ones who manage to advance towards the intimate self-realization of their being and the awakening of 100% of their consciousness, thus becoming cosmos creators, with freedom of movement in this and all universes. And there are also the trials of the 4 elements. This are the trials of earth, fire, water and air. We will face these trials from moment to moment, because in those trials of the four elements, the hierarchies know how the initiate is doing spiritually, if he is practicing or not. These trials serve to temper us, so that we forge will and seriousness in inner work. The trials of earth are related to poverty. During these tests on the astral plane, the person sees himself stuck between two rocks that close together threateningly. One feels trapped. If the candidate screams in horror, he inevitably fails the test. We have to learn to take advantage of the worst adversities. The worst adversities give us the best opportunities. We must learn to smile in the face of adversity, that is the law. Those who succumb to pain in the face of the adversities of existence cannot pass the trials of earth victorious. So on the physical level we will have to experience situations related to the economy, and if we consciously confront these situations by applying the psychological tools we have, we will pass these tests internally and externally. There are also the trials of water. In these trials the candidate is thrown, in the astral plane, into the ocean, and believes he is drowning. Those who don't know how to adapt to all the various social conditions of life, those who don't know how to live among the poor. Those who, after being shipwrecked in the ocean of life, reject the struggle and prefer to die. Those weak ones inevitably fail this trial. There are also the trials of fire. These trials serve to test the serenity and sweetness of the candidate. The angry and choleric inevitably fail these trials. During these trials on the astral plane, the candidate finds himself being persecuted, insulted, slandered, etc. Many people react violently and return to the physical body having failed the test. On other occasions, during these tests, we can see ourselves in the astral surrounded by flames. The flames horrify the weak, those who on the physical plane don't know how to control their passionate and angry fire. And we will also have to go through constant trials of air. Those who despair at the loss of something or someone, those who are not willing to lose what they love the most, fail in the trials of air. In the astral plane, the candidate is thrown to the bottom of a precipice. The weak one screams and returns to the physical body in horror, failing the trial. Those are generally the trials related to initiation. If we really want to travel the path that leads us to liberation, we must learn to take advantage of the worst adversities in life, because hidden there is the possibility of advancing in this path. And this has been the topic of today. In our next conference we will be studying everything related to the sacred fire. So you are cordially invited to join us in the study of this interesting topic. Until next time.